ResearchRabbit, which can be accessed at researchrabbit.com, is a really nice tool for taking a deeper dive into the literature around a project and for finding links or indeed gaps in the research. It's quite aptly named, as you may find yourself going down a rabbit hole, and when you first start to use it, it can quickly start to look a little bit confusing or even overwhelming. But stick with it, and it's an incredibly powerful tool for research. Even better, it's completely free to use, and a nice feature of ResearchRabbit is that it integrates seamlessly with the referencing software Zotero, which is also free. And we will look at how these two can be used together later in the video. When you first log into ResearchRabbit, you will be presented by a fairly blank screen with these options of New Collection, New Category, or Import Zotero Collection. You can think of a collection as a folder for each part of the project, and then a category is a way of grouping these collections together. So for example, I may want to make two collections for the different arms of the immune system, so innate and adaptive. If I start by creating a new collection and name that innate, you will see that I now get a new collection called innate. I also get some options over here on the right, which we will come back to a little bit later. To create my second collection, I can either go back up and add new collection, or I can click plus collection here, and I'm going to call that adaptive. And now you'll see that I have another collection. What I can then do is to create a category to house that collection, so I don't want it in my uncategorized category. So by creating a new category, and I'm going to call that immunology, and I can create a new category down here. To move these collections into a category, I can either click and drag, and you'll see it move down there, or I can click the three little dots next to the name of the collection, and then I can move it into the immunology category. You can also see that you can create other collections here within the individual categories as well, so you can start to build up multiple collections or multiple folders within your category. So this is a really nice way of starting to organize your different projects, keeping the papers organized. You can also import a collection from the referencing software Zotero. Now to do this, you will need to have created an account in Zotero and created your first library. But then what you can do is you can click Import Zotero Collection. It will give me the name of a library that I've already previously created. And by clicking on Start Sync, it will ask me to name that category, so I'm just going to call it Gen AI. And it will very quickly produce another collection for me. Now you'll see that this collection already has a paper that I have added to it in Zotero, so you can see that the two sync up. If you want to start from scratch, so I can go back to my innate collection, then you can add a paper, and then you can search for papers either using the title, the DOI, or the PMID numbers. You can search by keywords, or you can upload either BibTeX or RIS files. So I'm going to use the Gen AI folder just for this example video to showcase some of the features of ResearchRabbit. If I click on the paper within that collection, you can see it brings up a nice little summary of the abstract. It gives you a link to the PDF, it's available, and you can also add comments. So you can see here that I've added a comment that this is the first paper. Now, where ResearchRabbit really starts to become useful is when you want to explore the literature very quickly. So you have options over here on the right of how to explore the literature. So you can look at the similar works, you can look at all the references that are contained within that paper, or you can look at papers that have cited that paper already. So you can start to really quickly build up a view of where that paper sits within the literature. So I'm going to look at similar works. And ResearchRabbit scours thousands of papers in its database and produces a node map with the original paper highlighted here in green. And you can see then how that links together with other papers in the database. The map is fully interactive so that you can zoom out, you can zoom in, you can fit it so that everything is visible, and you can start to move papers around. So if you want to drag and create the map slightly differently, then you can do that. If you zoom in, then you can start to see how the papers are linked to one another. So you can see here, if I highlight and hover over another paper, you can see that this paper has cited king in 2023 at the top, but it's been cited by other papers. So it becomes quite useful in being able to look at how the citation history has evolved. If you zoom all the way out, you can see clusters of research. So you can see we've got a cluster of research here at the top where all the papers are linked and have either cited or been cited by that node paper, that first paper that we put in. We can also see this cluster at the bottom, which are papers that ResearchRabbit has identified as being linked to the subject area but haven't been cited by any of the papers within that original cluster. So it's a really nice way of being able to maybe find papers you otherwise would have missed in a literature search. You can select the papers either from the list, or you can click directly on a paper within the node, and then that opens up another selection pane on the right. So again, you've got access to the PDF. Where this becomes powerful is that you can add papers to a collection. So if I click Add to Gen AI here, I get this pop-up window saying it's adding a paper. And if I scroll back across now to my library, you can see it's updated it. So there are now 2 papers in that collection, and it's added that second paper. If I deselect that second paper just for a moment and go back to the node map for similar works, you can see that by adding that second paper into the node map and clicking similar works, it really changes the shape of that node. So you start to get an integration of the different papers. So you can see the 2 papers now are highlighted in green. Those are the 2 that are in my library. I can repeat that process. I can look at similar works again, and it will start to evolve that literature search and start to really go down a rabbit hole, as I said. So as well as the network view, you can also switch to a timeline view where you see the date order of the papers by year. So this can be quite useful looking at the history of the citations. These author options helps you to see which authors are commonly citing each other. So in this map, you can see that there are very distinct clusters of authors which seem to be working together. Those can either be research teams or collaborative teams. You can also go back and look at earlier work and later work. So this is really helpful in exploring an area for the first time. You can see how the research has informed other research. So you can create a new map which will showcase the earlier work. You could go back and look at the later work, and then this will help you to see where research has helped inform research. Where it adds real value is by allowing you to add papers to collections in ResearchRabbit and then syncing that to your Zotero collection and vice versa. If you're using a different software like Mendeley or EndNote, you can also go down to the export papers, and you've got the options to export it either as a BibTeX, an RAS or a CSV file. So if I were to go back to my Zotero collection over here, you can see that I now have the 3 papers that have been added here. If I add this to resync with Zotero and then open up my Zotero library, then you can see that I have those 3 papers in that library. And so it's automatically adding those papers into the library for me. Lastly, for research groups, you have the ability to share collections. So if you click on the 3 dots next to a collection, then you can either make it publicly available as a public collection, or you can share with specific email addresses, so somebody else who has registered for a ResearchRabbit account, and that allows you to collaborate on the individual collection. So that can be really useful if you're working within a research group and you want to be able to share papers if you're working on sort of commonly themed projects. So that's ResearchRabbit. It's an incredibly powerful tool. It can look quite complicated when you first start to use it, but as I said, stick with it, and it becomes an incredible ally when you're trying to find the papers within your research field.